Hi, this is Ivy from Scrappy Mania, and today what I want to do is a product review. Now, I first started out when I started getting interested in making mixed media art. One of the things that I was seeing a lot on YouTube was you had to prep your surface with gesso. So I bought a big gallon or big container of gesso, and I've been using that on my project. So the first time I used the gesso, which was right here, notice that I was getting a lot of streaking and things like that. Another thing I've learned from this first mixed media project is that I don't really like the Mod Podge glossy for it. You know, I like more the matte feeling to seal things. Another thing is that with gesso, it doesn't soak in. So that's why when I went over it with my Mod Podge, it smeared. So I was getting disappointed with using my spray mitts or even my watercolors, and it was not soaking in, and it was kind of you know, not working. Then I started playing with not putting gesso on my project and just using straight watercolor or sprays on it. That worked fine. However, you saw a lot of the text, see, like this. I can see a lot of my book paper come across, and maybe I don't really want that. There are some instances that I don't really want to see the print to come across so strong. So then here's another one. So then I used some more gesso in this one. And again, as you can see, things were smearing. Then again, this one was smearing a lot. Then this one I used without the gesso, and it didn't smear. Actually the spray was able to sunk in. So I like that. This one, again, I put a very light coat of gesso, but the sprays were working very well. Again, these smeared a little bit, and definitely it smeared a lot. Now this one is plain with, after I covered it with gesso and I sprayed it, I went ahead and used some gel medium. And then another thing is the gel medium. When I was putting the gel medium on top of a lot of these projects, that's what's causing it to smear. Okay, it still looks okay. I mean, it's not bad, but it's still smearing. Now this one, what I did use gesso. Then instead of watercolors, what I did is I used my chalk for the background, and I used hairspray, and it fixed it. It did soak into the gesso after the hairspray a little bit, and it didn't smear when I went over it with some gel medium. This one, a little bit. Okay, so then I started, and this one's a little, you know, I did some gesso. What I was doing is I was putting a light coat of gesso on top and then using my watercolors. Well, I started looking around on YouTube, and I found tutorials and some reviews on absorbent ground. Then, so I bought that, and I'm going to go ahead and try this paper. You know, I put some on this. You got to put gesso first and then the absorbent ground on top. There's 2 coats. I put 2 coats of absorbent ground. Let's see how that works. This one is only gesso on paper. Now this one, this art journal here, this is created with a magazine, and I created my own homemade gesso. Before I bought the absorbent ground, I say, well, maybe if I use something that has a more tooth, that maybe the watercolor will grab onto that tooth and not spread as much when I do my sprays or my watercolors. And it does work pretty well. So this has been working very well. As you can see here, there's not a lot of smearing. And this was another one that, you know, there wasn't a lot of smearing when I went over it with my gel medium to seal it. And then this one, there was some smearing, but this was on purpose. I did that on purpose. But other than that, you know, but you still have a little bit of the runnings, though. If you put a lot of water, it does run a little bit, especially if you put water and then you try to dry it. This one actually came out a little better, and this was with my homemade gesso. And then this one definitely came out a lot better. If you saw the video on this one, after I colored it, I put my watercolor on top. I use this Suave Max Hole hairspray. This works very well. I put that on, I used that to fix the colors in, and then when I went over it with the gel medium, nothing really smudged. See, everything stayed pretty much intact. There's no smearing, no nothing. I like that. So my homemade gesso is working well, but I went ahead and got the absorbent ground just to review it. Let's see if it's worth. Now this is expensive. This was $28. I bought a big one. It was kind of expensive, so I want to see, does this, making my own version, which was just latex paint, some plaster of Paris, which comes in a powder form, and some glue and water. I made my own gesso, so that's my very inexpensive. Kind of more expensive. This is kind of pricey too, but this one, it's very good for chalks. It's very good for acrylic paint, but when you use your watercolor, it doesn't absorb it, so it kind of moves. Now, if you like the movement of your watercolors, then that's fine, but maybe sometimes you may not want it to move. You may want to just to have it sink in. So let's start with the gesso. So first, my gesso, and by the way, I buy it on Amazon, and I don't buy the real brand, the golden, or anything like that. I buy the cheapest gesso they had on Amazon. This was not that bad. This, I think, was $17 for 32 ounce. Hey, not pretty good. I thought that was pretty good. Reasonable. This one, they don't really have absorbent ground. Other brands, only Golden carried the absorbent ground. I did not see any generic or anything like that for that. So that's why I had to buy the brand name. So let's see if it was worth purchasing the brand name. So I got some colors here. Now, these are my homemade watercolors that I create with printer inks and water. And I also sometimes put alcohol in it. Now, I recommend do not put a lot of the iridescent, they have some iridescent medium that you can buy that you can put in here and make it sparkle. I haven't used that because it clogs up. I have a lot of these, like this one, that I put that iridescent paint on it, and it clogs it up. So, not liking that very much. So just keep it plain without that iridescent medium. So now let's see. Okay, and it does move. And I'm using another kind of lavender color. It's moving, which is fine. Now let me see if I could put I want a red color. Let's see if I have red. Got this pink. Let's try it. And see how it moves? It makes for an interesting background, so I'm going to let it dry, but see, it moves. It does move a lot. And if I go over it, so let's let it dry. If you go over without sealing it, it's going to kind of, it doesn't soak in. Trust me. It doesn't soak in. It does move. Now, I do like this look, so I'm going to leave it alone because I don't want to mess it up. And I'm going to use this. Now, if you're wondering what kind of paper I'm using 140-pound weight of mixed media paper by Canton. Let's go ahead and try my version of gesso. Whoops. is moving, but I do like how that's looking. Let it move. So it does move. Okay, I'll set this aside to let it dry. Now, absorbent ground. Let's see how this one's going to stand up and if it's going to move as much as the other one. So gesso moved, my homemade gesso moved. Let's see this. Oops. It doesn't, look at that. It doesn't really move as much. Does move, but not, it's kind of soaking in. I think it's soaking in. See? See, this one has clogs up. That's why I don't like putting iridescent medium on it, in it, because it clogs up. Oops. Gotta get this out. Oh wait, it's this one. It's not moving as much as the other one. See, look, it doesn't move. Hey, I'm liking this one. I know, I guess it depends how much you put, but it's not really moving as much as the gesso. It's kind of soaking in a little more, but I do like that. Now I'm going to let these dry. Okay, so everything is nice and dry. So this is the gesso, the one with the brand, the gesso brand, or the real gesso. This is with my homemade gesso. It did move, and see, it's not, it blended a little bit. And then this is with the golden absorbent ground. Look at the difference. It's very, very vibrant. This one is not as vibrant, and the reason why it's not as vibrant because the colors, when they're drying, they're moving around, mixing with each other, because the color stays on the surface and it's just mixing with one another. I think this one, the color, when I put this on, it immediately went whoop. It like soaked in, it absorbed a little bit. And so that way it kept the colors nice and vibrant. It didn't have a chance to kind of mix together. So this one is nice and vibrant. And then this one, you know, it did my homemade gesso. It's comparable. Now it's a little more vibrant than the brand gesso because it does have a little more tooth. But it's still kind of, the colors were able to kind of mix and match, you know, together. So let's go ahead and see. One of my techniques that I like doing is to take a stencil. Okay, and I got some paper here. I'm going to take my watercolor, my water spray, and I want to give it a ghost background. So I am going to re-wet the surface. So I'm re-wetting the surface, and I'm going to lift this up and then immediately blot the water off. And see how it makes that ghost little image? That looks, I like doing that. So with the gesso you can do that. Which means that if I go over with gel medium, if I don't use a hairspray and go over this with gel medium, it's gonna remove and smear my paint. pretty. That looks nice. So if I want to do a technique like this, you know, that I want to do that ghosting, then it's going to work very nicely with gesso. So gesso is what you want to use. So it does look it looks nice. I like this. So if you want, you can use gesso, do what I did, and then you can do that ghosting technique. So if you go over with a gel sealant or a wet sealant, then you want to make sure that prior to that, you're going to use some spray adhesive. And that's what I did with this journal here. Before I went over it with my matte gel medium to protect it, I did seal it with a lot of spray. I put a lot of this hairspray, and my colors did not move. So it does work perfect like that. It's pretty good. Okay. Okay, so then the next one I want to try out is my homemade gesso. Let's put this away here. And how it's going to work with the ghosting technique. Pretty nice. It does work very nicely. Again, it does remove it. And get another. Okay. You see some of the ghosting, but not as much as this one. This one you see a lot more ghosting because it didn't absorb the color as much. It was able to pull it up when I sprayed it. This one, it's less ghosting, but it's still kind of nice. It's nice. Now, let's go ahead and test it out. Let me go do the same thing. Spray it there. Oh, wow. Look at that. Actually, this one a lot better for ghosting. Pretty nice. And that was a nice surprise. I didn't know it was going to be that dramatic for ghosting. Let me try this one. Let me try over here. I really, really like that. Oh, wow. I really, really like. I wasn't expecting this. Look how nice. I mean, that is just nice. And, you know, the colors are more vibrant, for one. It didn't mush around as much as these. The ghosting was a lot better. So look at the ghosting with my gesso. Look at the ghosting with the store-bought gesso, and look at the ghosting. Let me just compare this ghosting with this one. Look at that. you know what? I really like this absorbent ground. I don't know what it is, what the chemicals or what it does. I don't think I can make a homemade version of this at all. Like I was able to do with the gesso. I think you do have to end up buying the product, but I think the results are worth it. So look at that. So I hope you like this video, and it was, it did help you decide between making your own gesso or buying an absorbent ground. So I think from my experiment, I think what I'm going to do now is to make my gesso. My homemade gesso works very nicely, so use that. I can make that pretty inexpensive, and then just spend the money on the absorbent ground, because this is very, very nice. I really like the vitamin C, the ghosting. It's just all around a great product. So I hope you like this video, and thank you for watching. Bye now.